An elderly man walks into a luxury community clubhouse, about to face humiliation. The community leaders see him as just an unqualified applicant. They mock him, tear his family photo, unaware of who he truly is. A community transformation is about to unfold. The autumn sun cast long shadows as Colonel William Monroe carefully stepped out of his modest sedan. At 72, his one-straight military posture had yielded to time, leaving him slightly hunched. His weathered hands gripped a worn leather briefcase containing his most precious possession, a family photograph showing his late wife Eleanor and their son James, who had fallen in Afghanistan. William adjusted his simple tweed jacket, purchased years ago from an Army surplus store. His sparse silver hair caught the breeze as he gazed up at the imposing entrance of Oak Haven Estates, the most exclusive community in the county. For 40 years, he had served as an Army medical officer, rushing into combat zones from Vietnam to the Gulf War, saving hundreds. After retirement, he dedicated himself to veterans' health care rights. Now, he'd been invited to join the county's Veteran Services Oversight Committee, a position that included residency in this very community. At the security desk, William presented his invitation letter with steady hands. The young guard scrutinized it, then glanced uncertainly at Howard Bennett, the community board president who happened to be passing through the lobby. Bennett, in his tailored suit and designer watch, approached with an air of authority. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, eyeing William's worn shoes and outdated jacket. "This gentleman claims he has an appointment regarding residency," the guard explained. Bennett took the letter, his lips curling into a faint sneer. "And you are?" "Colonel William Monroe, sir, retired Army Medical Corps." Bennett's eyes narrowed. "I don't recall approving any veterans applications recently." "The county committee arranged it," William explained calmly. "I'm to serve as—" "I'm sure there's been some misunderstanding," Bennett interrupted. "We have standards here at Oak Haven." He gestured to a side office. "Let's verify your credentials privately." Inside the small room, Bennett remained standing, leaving William to stand as well despite his obvious discomfort. "Our residents are primarily executives, doctors, successful entrepreneurs," Bennett said coldly. "Not pensioners. This community might not be the right fit for someone of your situation." Bennett extended his manicured hand. "Let me see those documents again, along with some proof of financial qualification." William opened his briefcase, carefully extracting a folder of papers. As he did, a worn photograph slipped out, showing him in uniform beside his wife and son, all smiling proudly. "My family," William said softly, retrieving the photo. "My late wife Eleanor was a nurse. Our son James served as a combat medic like me. He was killed in Afghanistan 5 years ago." Bennett's expression didn't soften. "Mr. Monroe." "Colonel," William corrected gently. "Whatever. Look, I'll be direct. We've had issues with military families before. PTSD episodes, adjustment problems, declining property values. I assure you, I've been thoroughly evaluated and—" Bennett snatched a photograph from William's hands. "These military sentiments don't align with our community aesthetics." He examined the photo with distaste. "We don't need emotionally unstable veterans disrupting our peaceful environment." Before William could react, Bennett deliberately tore the photograph in half, then quarters, then eighths. "Your application is denied," he said, dropping the fragments into a wastebasket. "Military background makes you a security liability." William's weathered face remained composed, but his eyes betrayed his pain. Silently, he knelt, joints protesting, to retrieve the torn pieces of his most treasured possession. "Please escort this gentleman out," Bennett told the guard at the door. "He has no business in Oak Haven." Outside the gates, William carefully placed the photo fragments in his breast pocket, his arthritic fingers trembling slightly. The young female security guard who had escorted him looked uncomfortable. "I'm sorry about what happened in there, sir," she whispered. "It wasn't right." William looked at her kindly. "Remember this day, young lady. Justice may be delayed, but it's never denied." As he turned to leave, a sleek black sedan pulled up to the curb. Catherine Reynolds, the the county housing commissioner, emerged looking concerned. "Colonel Monroe," she called, hastening toward him. "I was told you arrived early. We were supposed to meet at—" She stopped, noticing his expression. "What happened?" The security guard stepped forward nervously. "Mr. Bennett, he tore up the colonel's family photo and had him removed." Catherine's face hardened. "He did what?" She pressed a button on her phone. "Derek, get everyone to the clubhouse now. Every board member, every committee head. Emergency meeting in 15 minutes." She gently took William's arm. "Colonel Monroe, I believe we need to return inside. There appears to be a significant misunderstanding about your position here." William nodded, straightening his posture despite the pain. "Lead the way, Commissioner." The Oak Haven clubhouse fell silent as William entered alongside Commissioner Reynolds. Several men and women in formal attire rose from their seats, including two high-ranking military officers and the county executive, Howard Bennett, engaged in animated conversation at the center of the room, turned and froze. His confidence visibly crumbled as Catherine guided William to the front. "Ladies and gentlemen," Catherine announced, her voice carrying across the marble-floored hall. "For those who haven't had the pleasure of meeting him yet, this is Colonel William Monroe, recipient of the Silver Star and Bronze Star for valor in Vietnam and the Gulf War." A murmur of respect rippled through the room. Colonel Monroe is not only our invited resident, but also the newly appointed chair of the County Veterans Housing Oversight Committee, authorized by the recently passed Veterans Fair Housing Act to review policies at all county residential communities, including Oak Haven. Bennett's face paled. "I was informed." "Furthermore," Catherine continued, ignoring his interruption, "Colonel Monroe will serve as co-chair of this community's board effective immediately, with special focus on compliance with federal housing regulations." William walked slowly to the head table where a nameplate waited. "Colonel William Monroe, Community Oversight Chair." He placed his hand on it, but didn't sit. "Mr. Bennett," William said calmly, the room hanging on his words, "I believe we have some community business to discuss." Bennett's mouth opened, but nothing came out. The power dynamic had irreversibly shifted. William took his seat at the center of the U-shaped table, carefully removing the torn photo fragments from his pocket. He arranged them on the polished mahogany surface as the room watched in tense silence. "Before we discuss community business," he began, his voice quiet yet commanding, "I believe we should address what transpired earlier." He described, with a doctor's clinical precision, how Bennett had handled his application and destroyed his family photograph. No raised voice, no accusatory finger, just facts delivered with dignified restraint. "In my 40 years of military service," William continued, "I've witnessed countless physical wounds. But today, I observed something potentially more damaging, a wound to the very values this community claims to uphold." He gestured to one of the military officers, who approached with a small box. William opened it, revealing his son's Purple Heart and Silver Star. "My son gave his life treating wounded soldiers under fire. My wife spent 30 years supporting military families through deployment and loss. This photograph was my last image of us together." Bennett shifted uncomfortably. "Colonel, there's been a regrettable misunderstanding." "Not a misunderstanding, Mr. Bennett," William interrupted gently. "A pattern." He nodded to Catherine, who projected a series of graphs onto the wall screen. "Our preliminary review shows that over the past 5 years, Oak Haven has rejected 92% of applications from military families, compared to a 14% rejection rate for other applicants with identical financial qualifications." Bennett's face flushed. "That's coincidental. Market factors." "Coincidences can be measured, Mr. Bennett." William motioned to a uniformed officer at the back of the room. "This is Captain Harris from the Defense Department's Housing Equity Office. His team will conduct a formal investigation into Oak Haven's application practices, effective immediately." Bennett glanced around desperately, finding no allies among the suddenly silent board members. As the meeting progressed, the community's discriminatory practices emerged like hidden fractures suddenly exposed to light. Emma Lawson, a former administrative assistant who had worked in the Oak Haven office for 3 years, was the first to testify. Her hands trembled as she spoke. Mr. Bennett instructed us to flag any application mentioning military service, she explained. We were told to find technicalities to reject them, credit checks, reference issues, anything. She produced an email from Bennett that read, "Avoid accepting families with potential PTSD or adjustment issues. Military backgrounds present unpredictable risks to community harmony." Captain Harris nodded grimly, adding the document to his growing file. More evidence surfaced. Security protocols requiring extra scrutiny for military visitors, community rules with subtle restrictions targeting veteran behaviors, maintenance requests from veteran families consistently delayed. The room grew heavier with each revelation. In the back corner, an elderly woman rose shakily to her feet, supported by a decorative cane. "My name is Margaret Wilson," she said, her voice thin but determined. "I've lived here for 5 years. No one knows that my Thomas was a Vietnam helicopter pilot who earned 3 distinguished flying crosses." Tears welled in her eyes. "I've hidden his medals, never mentioned his service. When neighbors asked about him, I said he was in international business, not that he died from Agent Orange exposure. I was afraid of being ostracized." Her words broke something open in the room. A middle-aged man stood up. "My daughter serves in the Navy. I've never mentioned it here because I sense the prejudice." Others followed, residents confessing their silence, expressing outrage at the discrimination, or revealing their own hidden military connections. By the time the testimonies ended, nearly a third of the room had spoken, revealing a community divided by an unspoken bias that had festered for years. William stood again, moving deliberately to the center of the room. The afternoon light through the windows caught his sparse silver hair, creating a momentary halo effect that wasn't lost on those watching. "What we're witnessing today isn't unique to Oak Haven," he said, his voice stronger now. "It represents a nationwide shadow of discrimination that follows our service members home from war." He gestured to Captain Harris, who projected national statistics showing housing discrimination against veterans, particularly those with combat experience or visible disabilities. "When our soldiers return home," William continued, "they shouldn't face another battle for acceptance. Their families shouldn't have to hide who they are or what they've sacrificed." He unveiled a proposal, the Monroe Initiative, outlining the nation's first military family-friendly community certification program. The comprehensive plan included fair application processes, support services for transitioning families, PTSD education for community staff, and integration programs for military children. "This isn't about punishment," William emphasized. "It's about transformation." The county executive rose immediately, pledging full support and suggesting Oak Haven become the pilot community for the initiative. William turned to Bennett, who sat slumped in his chair. "Mr. Bennett, today offers you a choice not between right and wrong, but between clinging to the past or helping to build a better future. Which will you choose?" The question hung in the air, unanswered but resonant, as the meeting moved to formal votes. The board voted unanimously to suspend Bennett pending the investigation's outcome and appointed William as interim chair. His first motion, establishing a Veterans Welcome Committee to review previously rejected applications, passed without objection. As the meeting adjourned, people approached William, some offering handshakes, others apologies for their silence. Catherine presented him with community keys and the chairman's gavel. "This wasn't how we planned your welcome," she said, "but perhaps it's exactly what needed to happen." William was gathering his papers when commotion erupted at the entrance. A young man in his 20s burst through the doors, scanning the room until he spotted Bennett. "Dad," he called, striding forward. "What did you do? Everyone's talking about it." Bennett rose awkwardly. "Robert, this isn't the time." "It's exactly the time," Robert insisted, his face flushed with emotion. "You tore up a veteran's family photo? After everything I told you last week?" Bennett looked confused. "What does that have to do with?" "I enlisted, Dad. I'm shipping out to basic training next month. Medical Corps." Bennett's face registered shock, then dismay. "You what?" "We had plans. Your law school, the firm." "I want to serve," Robert said simply, "like Colonel Monroe's son did." William approached him quietly, extending his hand to the young man. "It's an honorable choice," he said. Robert shook his hand firmly. "I'm sorry for what my father did, sir." William nodded, then turned to Bennett. "Your son is making a brave decision. Now you have one to make as well." 3 days later, a hand-delivered letter arrived at William's temporary housing. Inside was a formal apology from Bennett, along with a request to meet privately. When they did, Bennett's arrogance was gone, replaced by genuine confusion and remorse. "I never saw myself as prejudiced," he admitted, "but somehow I became exactly that." "Recognition," William replied, "is the first step toward change." 6 months later, Oak Haven celebrated becoming the nation's first certified military family-friendly community. An American flag flew at the entrance, alongside a new banner showing the number of service families now residing there, 27 and growing. William's office wall displayed his restored family photograph, carefully pieced together by a professional conservator. Beside it hung a new image, Oak Haven's first Veterans Appreciation Day, with dozens of military families in the front row, including Howard Bennett standing proudly next to his son Robert, now in uniform. In a surprising turn, Bennett had become the initiative's most passionate advocate, leveraging his real estate connections to promote the Monroe standards across the state. 5 neighboring communities had already begun certification processes. At a national housing policy conference in Washington, William was invited as a keynote speaker. His arthritic hands trembled slightly as he held up the restored photograph. "Every picture tells a story," he told the audience of policymakers and developers. "Behind every uniform is a family. When we honor one, we must honor both." The Monroe Initiative was subsequently included in federal housing guidelines, ensuring that no veteran will be told they didn't belong. Not in their country, not in their community, not in their home. If you know veterans or military families, share your respect for them in the comments. Our communities are safer because of their sacrifice. Like and share this story to raise awareness about challenges facing military families. How does your community treat veterans? Let us know in the comments below. Your stories of respect matter to us all.